Well, hello. We have John's Gospel. The blind man has been healed. This is now causing a big dispute, as many of Jesus' healings did. And the Pharisees and the religious leaders they're divided, and they're trying to find a way out. So first of all, we've got the next bit in John there, speaking to his parents to try and get a way out, and then they speak to him again, and then Jesus comes and speaks to the man who is healed. So we'll just do the parent bit first, I think. Keep this video rather short. So, verses 18 to 23. The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But how he now sees, we don't know. Nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he's of age. He will speak for himself." The parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone should confess Jesus to be the Christ, he was to be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He's of age, ask him." So, when it says the Jews here, it means the religious leaders. And they're desperate. They want to get her out of this. There is division among them because the man has clearly been healed, or at least can clearly now see without any difficulty. And if that's the case, it's very difficult to say that Jesus was, in their eyes, a bad man. And people will try and deny miracles. Now, there's up to a point in which we should have some scepticism. There are many instances where people claim something was a miracle when in fact it wasn't. Maybe they've been it's entirely fraudulent. That does happen sometimes. People make utterly fraudulent claims or making claims from bad motives. Sometimes it's people just overclaiming a bit. But then there are other times when miracles actually happen. But people they'll try and find any alternative explanation. Because if the miracle is true, then it means we have questions to answer. Because God's done something. The supreme example of that is the resurrection. Now, if the resurrection is true, you can't just dismiss Jesus. You're just dismissing this man who was clearly killed and was raised from the dead, never to die again. Then you can't, oh, Jesus is just a man. Who cares? Well, something miraculous, very miraculous has occurred. You need to answer it. And, of course, people do not get raised from the dead. And that's a matter of course. But then if you look at the evidence for the resurrection, which we're not going to go into all of it here, but with the events of the resurrection, the simplest explanation, the one which accords with the facts, is that Jesus was raised from the dead. All the supposed alternative explanations got to become increasingly implausible. But people will try and deny the truth. And it's what they're doing here. Well, perhaps he wasn't blind at all. Perhaps he wasn't born blind. He'd always been able to see. He was just having them on, pretending to be a beggar and get some money by pretending to be blind or so. I don't know what they were thinking. But it was a desperate attempt to get out of this. So they go and find his parents. They say, is this your son, and was he born blind? And the parents say yes. They're very circumspect in the answers they give. As it says here in John's explanation, his parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed they would put people out of the synagogue if they confessed the name of Jesus. So there was a price to be paid if you admitted to believing in Jesus. And the synagogue was it was a focal point of life. If you were cast out of the synagogue, you were kind of cast out of society, or were at least something of an outcast in society. So people would not be keen to be cast out of society at all. That's why his parents are so circumspect. So they say, yes, he was born blind. He was our son, and he was born blind. He was blind from birth, and now he can see. These were incontrovertible facts. But what they won't say anything about is how he got healed or who healed him. Now, it was said to be perfectly reasonable as well in saying that, because they were, at least from the record, apparently weren't there at the time, so they weren't able to know who had done it or how it had been done. But anyway, this was the first attempt of the Pharisees, of the religious leaders, to get out of the dilemma they find themselves in. And it has failed. So we'll go on to the second attempt in the next wee video.